The transmission died mid-sentence. Static hissed through the council chamber's audio feed. Before the signal vanished, the last image burned into the screen showed Lieutenant Rafik screaming, his hand raised towards something off-screen, something fast, violent, and unseen. Then nothing. Ambassadorial silence followed, heavy and awkward. Captain Mason Wolfe stood at the edge of the Galactic Council's dais, arms crossed, his jaw tight. A panel of 12 species blinked or twitched nervously under the sudden blackout. The Tharn representative, a mantis-like creature named Exthel, adjusted his robes with exaggerated calm. "The humans were warned," he said coolly. "Karnak 7 is unregulated territory. Accidents occur." "That wasn't an accident," Mason said, voice low but clear. Counselor Jerna of the Voss clicked his beak. "We detected no official Tharn operations in that zone." "Of course you didn't," Mason snapped. "Because they're not sanctioned. That's the whole point." The chamber erupted into overlapping alien tongues. Mason stepped back, composed, but his eyes burned. 6 hours ago, Earth's security delegation, 3 Marines, 2 specialists, and a diplomatic analyst, were on a routine goodwill patrol near a known Tharn border on Karnak 7. They never breached it. Mason knew this because he planned the route himself. Precise. Controlled. Nothing left to chance. They were taken anyway. He turned from the dais without waiting for adjournment. Let the council murmur. Let the Tharn lie through forked mouths. Mason had no more time for politics. Back on his ship, resolute, Mason moved with purpose. Every step in his quarters was deliberate, measured like a war drum's beat. A screen lit up with archived data. Satellite footage, personnel files, terrain schematics of Karnak 7. He swept aside bureaucratic overlays and focused on heat signatures from earlier that day. One's Earth scanners missed, but a modified AI flagged large quadruped movements encircling the patrol team's last known position. No wildlife in the registry moved that way. Mason knew what he was looking at. Tharn predators. Trained. Released for sport. He leaned against the console, exhaling slowly. Then tapped a button. A voice answered on the third ring. Female. Dry, direct. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again, Mason." "I need a team," he said. A pause. Then, "You have it." Later, inside the Resolute's armory, he ran his hands along the matte black casing of a suppressed plasma rifle. Not council-issued. Custom. Illegal on most civilized worlds. "Going rogue?" said a voice from behind. He turned. Commander Elena Tran stepped through the door, her dark hair pulled back, face unreadable. She had served under him in the last orbital insurgency. They didn't part on friendly terms. "I don't need permission to clean up a mess the council won't acknowledge. You'll make Earth a target." Mason stared at her. "They already made us prey." A long silence followed. Then she nodded toward the rifle. "That model still kicks right. Better than ever." He clicked the chamber shut. "And so do we." At 0300 hours, Mason stood on the hangar deck with 4 figures, former operators, trusted ghosts from classified missions. "This is an extraction," he said. "Our people are alive. That means they're being hunted. Likely broadcast or prepped for the hunt games. The Tharn use splice drones now," said Reyes, the engineer. "Camouflage like you've never seen. And their terrain's a nightmare." "Good," Mason replied. "That means they'll think they're safe." Jenkins, a medic with a sniper's comm, grinned. "Just like Kandahar. Only colder. And with more teeth." Tran handed Mason a chip. "Ship transponder scrambled. Council can't trace you unless they're watching too closely." "They're always watching," Mason muttered. "But they won't see what's coming." Hours later, Karnak 7 hung in the void like a bruised pearl. Its surface was a twisted mix of toxic jungle and jagged black ridges. Storm bands drifted like snakes across the horizon. This wasn't a planet. It was a trap designed to test the desperate and break the unprepared. Perfect. The Resolute entered low orbit under stealth. Mason studied the readings. No active beacons. No distress pings. But faint bursts, encrypted pulses repeating every 93 seconds. Too rhythmic to be natural. Morse? Reyes asked. Mason smiled. SDILA live. They're sending it by biosignal modulation, Mason said. One of them must have hacked their implant. That's Rafik's work. They're not just alive, Jenkins said. They're buying us time. Then let's not waste it. On the descent, Mason donned his exo-rig. It wasn't flashy like Tharn armor. It was built for Earth's worst: heat, cold, shrapnel, and lies. The kind of suit you wore into hell with no backup plan. Tran adjusted her visor. You do realize, once we cross the threshold, we're officially insurgents. Not insurgents, Mason said. We're reminders. Of what? That apex predators don't ask for permission. The drop doors opened. Jungle wind howled like a dying machine. And they jumped. Chains rattled against stone. Sergeant Rafik knelt in the dim pit, his breathing sharp and deliberate. Dirt streaked his face, sweat soaked his collar. His wrists were shackled to a wall carved from volcanic rock, his uniform tattered but intact. Across from him, Corporal Anders sat slumped, unconscious but still alive, pulse faint beneath a bloody temple. A soft hum echoed above, followed by the low whine of a surveillance drone circling lazily overhead. Its single red eye pulsed like a heartbeat. Rafik lifted his chin. You watching this? He muttered. Good. Keep recording. He tilted his head just enough to expose the side of his neck, where his subdermal transmitter blinked with faint blue light. His fingers had twitched a crude Morse signal for hours. Mason would come. Not out of obligation, but because that's what wolves do when someone takes their pack. Above the holding pit, grandstands roared with life. The arena looked like a half-dissected crater, its rim lined with carved seats, its center divided into chambers of terrain, jagged spires, mud trenches, synthetic jungle patches. Towering displays floated in the air, projecting footage from dozens of camera angles. Alien audiences watched from private boxes, masked in gold and bone. And at the center, seated on a throne of blackened bone, was Vorskthal. His chitinous fingers drummed the edge of the armrest, cold and rhythmic. His eyes, pitch and hollow, scanned the arena with a predator's patience. To his left stood a handler, holding a control tablet that monitored the human's vitals and neural signatures. Still defiant, the handler noted, glancing at Rafik's data stream. Good, Vorsk replied. Apex traits do not flourish in the passive. He rose, his 8-foot frame draped in scaled leather and ceremonial armor. With each step, the crowd's growl deepened. He walked to the pit's edge and looked down. You are not prey, he said in near-perfect English. His voice echoed unnaturally, assisted by a resonance amplifier buried in his throat. You are a test. Rafik smiled. You failed it. Vorsk blinked once, slow and deliberate. Then he turned and signaled. Gates rumbled open. 2 more humans were dragged into the arena, Corporal Mendez and Private Harlan. Bruised but standing. Alive. The Tharn guards shoved them toward the opposite end of the pit, where the walls retracted to reveal the jungle simulation zone. Vorsk stepped forward. Release Protocol 3. Species Initiate, Tier 6 Carnivores. On cue, massive metal doors at the far edge parted. A low growl poured out like smoke. 2 beasts emerged, reptilian frames fused with cybernetic limbs, jaws split in 4, sensors twitching along their backs. Bred for speed, vision, and bloodlust. Vorsk raised his arm. Begin. Miles away, cloaked under the thick canopy of Karnak 7, Mason crouched by a moss-slicked tree, eyes fixed on a portable display. I've got a live feed, Reyes whispered beside him. Looks like a closed-circuit loop, Tharn systems bouncing it through encrypted nodes. Patch in, Mason said. I want eyes on my team. Jenkins handed over a high-range scope. And we've got movement. 2 targets inbound, large heat signatures. Not wildlife. Drones or dogs? Tran asked. Neither, Jenkins replied. Bigger. Mason didn't hesitate. Shift formation. We take high ground, 3-minute intervals. Reyes, crack their overlay and reroute us into their blind zone. Jenkins, prep EMPs. As they moved, the images on Reyes' feed sharpened. Mason watched his soldiers forced into combat, limbs shaking not from fear, but from calculated restraint. They weren't panicking. They were waiting. They're buying time, Mason said quietly. Tran frowned. Time for what? For us to hit first. Back in the arena, Mendez ducked as one of the beasts lunged, its claws slicing a chunk of stone beside her. She rolled into cover behind a synthetic root, drawing a jagged piece of metal from the ground. Harlan, limping but focused, had already drawn the creature's attention away, shouting insults in 3 languages and pelting rocks. The crowd roared in glee. One of the drones angled for a closer shot. Rafik saw it too. Still shackled, he shifted his body to shield Anders, his fingers brushing the transmitter embedded in his collarbone. Signal spike, 28%. He grinned. That was enough. Back in the jungle, Reyes' tablet beeped. Spike hit. Their own cameras are bridging us into the local grid. Open it, Mason ordered. Moments later, a clear map bloomed on the screen. Guard patrols, beast locations, containment chambers. Mason's voice went cold. They're running blood games. Tran stared. The council swore these were outlawed decades ago. They lied. Mason turned toward the ridge. A towering platform overlooked the arena from afar, likely the control hub for security and surveillance. If they took that out, the Tharn would be blind. We hit that tower. Then we hit them where they live. Vorsk watched as Mendez stabbed one of the beasts in the side, only to be flung into a stone pillar. She didn't get up. The crowd howled. The second beast pounced on Harlan, but he dropped and rolled, sliding under its belly and slicing at the soft, unarmored gut. It shrieked. Blood hit the sand like rain. Vorsk narrowed his eyes. Interesting. He turned to the handler. Extend the round. Release the third predator. But the humans? They're not done yet. Near the control tower, Mason and his team set their charges. Jenkins adjusted the timer. Detonation in 45. Long enough for a show, Mason muttered. He raised his rifle, sighted the platform. Ready? Reyes grinned. Always. The first shot was silenced. The second wasn't. The tower's comms antenna shattered. Then came the explosion. Fire raced up the scaffolding. Drones twitched midair and dropped. Screens across the arena flickered. The audience murmured. Vorsk stood. Rafik felt his chains go slack. The override failed. He stood. About time, he growled, and ran straight for the remaining beast. The jungle didn't breathe. It seethed. Karnak 7's night air pulsed with a low, unnatural rhythm, like the planet itself was awake and listening. Trees reached high with twisted trunks, and vines moved when you weren't looking. Fog clung low to the ground, thick enough to swallow footsteps. Mason crouched at the edge of a clearing, hand raised in a silent signal. His team halted. Through the gap in the tree-line, the arena's rear wall glowed faint orange from the earlier blast. Smoke curled upward, distorting the view of the sky. But the chaos inside? That was clear. They're scrambling, Reyes said, watching his scanner. Internal comms are fractured. No drone support. Main gate security's frozen in loop mode. Means we've got one shot to breach, Mason replied. How many signatures near the holding pits? 6 humans scattered. 2 unknowns. Could be guards or handlers. Move fast, hit harder. He pointed toward the slope that curved around the arena's back wall. A forgotten maintenance path, barely visible and overgrown. Perfect. Tran, flank wide. Jenkins, watch the ridge. Reyes, you're with me. No questions. Just nods. They moved. Inside the arena, Rafik's hands were bleeding. The shackles had snapped free, but not without a cost. His wrist stung bone deep, but pain was fuel now. He sprinted past the stunned Tharn handlers, knocking one down with a shoulder slam and ripping a stun baton from his belt. The beast lunged. He dodged left, swung hard, and jammed the baton into its exposed jaw. Sparks lit up its skull. It shrieked, staggered, then dropped twitching. Not dead. But close enough. Across the arena, Mendez coughed back blood and crawled toward Anders. Harlan limped toward them, dragging a broken rifle like a crutch. The ground was torn to hell, craters, claw marks, blood trails. The crowd above had gone silent. Then the emergency sirens began. Mason kicked down the access panel to the arena's service tunnel. Thick cables lined the walls, and fluid leaked from broken conduits. Reyes followed close, rifle ready, eyes scanning the dark. A Tharn guard turned the corner. Mason didn't hesitate. 2 shots center mass, quiet as breath. The body dropped. They moved on. He could feel it now. This wasn't a rescue. It was a message. Above them, Vorsk stood at the throne, eyes narrowed. "This isn't chaos," he muttered. The handler beside him blinked in confusion. "Sir? This is control." The screen flickered. Human movements, fast, coordinated. Every strike had intent. No hesitation. No panic. Vorsk realized what he was seeing. A counterhunt. "Gates 30 meters," Reyes said, ducking under a low pipe. 2 guards on infrared, but their attention's up front. They're watching the arena. "Perfect," Mason muttered. He stepped out of the tunnel and moved low toward the gate's override panel. 1 guard turned just as Reyes fired, clean headshot. The second managed to reach for a signal beacon but went down from Mason's blade, quick and quiet. "Open it!" Reyes hacked into the system. "Got it, manual override in 3, 2. The gate hissed open. Rafik turned, stunned, as the steel wall split and light spilled into the arena's side. Then he saw the silhouette. "Mason? Move!" Mason barked. "Bring everyone. Now." They ran. Mendez half-carried Anders. Harlan stumbled behind, bleeding from the leg. Rafik led them to the gate, where Mason's team pulled them through, covering the retreat. "Vitals?" Jenkins asked, already scanning with his portable med kit. "They'll live," Rafik said. "But not for long if we stay. Then we finish this." Vorsk descended into the arena, claws clicking softly on the stone steps. His guards flanked him, weapons drawn. But he didn't lift his own. He stared across the arena at the open gate, at the humans regrouping just inside the tree line. "You dare bring war into our arena?" he called out. Mason stepped forward, rifle raised but not aimed. "No," he said. "I brought truth." Vorsk's eyes narrowed. "This is our domain. And you hunted my people like animals. Now they're coming home, and I'm erasing this place from memory." Vorsk growled. "You will not survive, Karnix." "I didn't come to survive." Mason turned and gestured. Jenkins hit the trigger. From beneath the arena, 3 remote charges detonated. The blast ripped through the control room and ignited the fuel cells powering the arena's lighting grid. The explosion tore upward, sending flames across the Colosseum stands. Spectators scattered. Screams filled the air. Vorsk roared as debris crashed down, barely missing him. The humans vanished into the jungle. They ran through the mist, every step pulling them deeper into the dense forest. Karnix's terrain was unforgiving, but now it was cover. Noise masked their retreat. Branches tore at them, but they didn't slow. After 15 minutes, Mason raised his hand. "Here." A small cave, covered in moss and shadow. Reyes scanned it, clear. They ducked inside. "Everyone down. Medical now." Jenkins worked fast, stabilizing Anders, sealing Mendez's ribs with foam, checking Harlan's leg. Mason stood at the mouth of the cave, rifle ready, listening. Tran leaned beside him. "Think Vorsk will chase us?" "He already is." She was quiet for a moment. "You knew this wasn't just a rescue, didn't you?" Mason nodded. "The moment they vanished, I knew." Then why come? He looked back at his wounded team, at the exhausted soldiers who never stopped fighting. Because they're mine, he said. Far above, a lone Tharn scout activated a long-range distress beacon. In it, one line of text blinked through static. Send reinforcements. Earth units activated Apex Protocol. Karnak 7 was burning behind them. Smoke crawled through the jungle canopy in long, silent threads, masking the moonlight. Mason didn't slow his pace. Every sense stayed sharp, boots placing each step with care, eyes constantly scanning. He knew what came next. The Tharn wouldn't retreat. They'd regroup, recalibrate, and hunt harder. And this time, they knew Mason was leading the game. Behind him, Reyes moved quietly, adjusting his rifle's barrel. Tran stayed rearguard, checking the path for pursuit. Jenkins marched with the injured, helping Mendez balance as she clutched her sealed ribs. Harlan grunted, limping hard. You good? Mason asked without turning. I've had worse, the soldier muttered. I doubt that, Reyes said. Mason held up a fist. Everyone stopped. A faint sound, clicks. Too regular to be an animal. Too far apart for a drone. Tran dropped to one knee. They're tracking us. Mason knelt, brushed dirt aside, and tapped into a patch of soil with his knife. Buried sensor Tharn tech. They laid a net, he said. A wide one. Jenkins stepped beside him. Then let's break it. No, Mason said. Let's feed it. 30 minutes later, a pair of Tharn scouts crept through the misted ravine, cloaked in stealth armor. The lead scout paused, tapping at a wrist console. Human heat signatures, confirmed. Close. They advanced, weapons raised. They didn't see the wire until it was too late. The first scout triggered the trap. A cluster of flash-bang charges exploded above them. Dazed, disoriented, they stumbled, right into the crossfire. Mason and Reyes opened up with suppressed rounds, precise and merciless. 2 bodies hit the ground. Mason retrieved the scout's data cores while Reyes stripped one for a functioning pulse beacon. Broadcast it? Reyes asked. Yeah, Mason said. Let them hear their own death cry. Deeper in the jungle, the humans circled into higher terrain, ridge country. The Tharn preferred close pursuit. Mason knew the open elevation would force them into uncomfortable angles. He set up a new fallback position just beyond a waterfall ridge. The sound of crashing water masked movement. The area narrowed into a choke point, perfect for an ambush. We're holding here, Mason said. You're planning to make a stand? Jenkins asked. No, Mason replied. I'm making a statement. Vorsk stood over the cooling remains of the scouts. One had their head vaporized. The other's weapon was still warm, but useless. Mason had tagged the scene with a brief message burned into the dirt. Try harder. The Tharn commander snarled. Commander, his second-in-command rasped. They've broken the sensor grid. Vorsk said nothing for a moment. Then, deploy the hounds. No more containment. But the terrain. Send the berserks too. I want them flushed. He looked toward the jungle ridge in the distance. They think they know how to hunt. We'll show them what war looks like. Night fell like a dropped curtain. The ridge came alive with heat signatures. Jenkins spotted the first wave, 4 Tharn hounds. Bioengineered, lean, plated with retractable claws and optical cloaks. They're coming fast, Jenkins said, snapping a drum into his shotgun. Mason placed a thermal charge beneath a cluster of wet ferns. Let them. This time, they run our gauntlet. The first hound leapt through the brush. Mason triggered the charge. White light and heat incinerated the underbrush. The hound shrieked, rolled through the fire, and met Reyes' boot mid-sprint. He slammed it backward with one blow, then shot it through the throat before it rose again. 3 more followed. Tran picked off 2 with a long-range plasma rifle, dropping from a perch she climbed unseen. Jenkins dropped the last with a clean scatter blast to the chest. It went quiet again. They're testing us, Reyes said. No, Mason replied. They're learning. An hour passed. Then came the heavy ones. Berserk-class warriors, standing almost 10 feet tall, armored like tanks, armed with electrified blades and sonic disruptors. One stomped through the jungle like a charging elephant. "Positions!" Mason shouted. Mendez, groaning through the pain, took cover behind a root system. Harlan lined up a grenade launcher from his prone spot beside the ridge ledge. "Light him up," Mason said. Harlan fired. The blast hit the berserk center mass, blew a chunk from its chest, but didn't stop it. It roared, charging straight through debris. Mason sprinted to meet it. He dove under its swing, rolled between its legs, jammed a thermal grenade into its side vent, and rolled clear. Boom! Half the jungle trembled. Mason exhaled hard, brushing dirt from his face. "That's one," he muttered. 2 more charged. This time, Jenkins and Tran doubled back, flanking wide. Reyes triggered a gravity mine mid-path, collapsing one into the ground with a crunch. Tran lined up a shot. "Drop the other?" "Do it," Mason said. The round burst through the berserk's neck with a wet snap. It hit the ground like a dropped boulder. Silence. Then only wind. They regrouped under the ledge. Mason checked each face. Exhausted. Bleeding. But alert. "We're not out yet," he said. "They're bleeding. They just don't know they've lost." Mendez sat back, holding her side. "So what now? We keep running?" "No," Mason said. "We go forward." He held up the Tharn data core. "This is their network access. We upload proof of what they've done, hunt games, illegal captures, DNA splicing. And we do it live, before they can scrub it." "And where do we send it from?" Jenkins asked. Mason pointed. "From the beacon tower. Top of the high cliffs. 1 kilometer north. Broadcast reach? Galactic core." Reyes raised a brow. "You planning to wake the entire council?" "I'm planning to make sure no one ever forgets what they tried here." He looked to the jungle. "Time to go loud." High above them, a remaining Tharn commander whispered into the storm. "Pull back. Regroup at the beacon. They're heading there." Behind him, Vorsk watched from the shadows. "No," he said. "We'll wait for them there." He unsheathed his blade and smiled. "Let them come." The beacon tower rose like a dagger from the earth, tall, silent, ancient. Built into a crag of jagged stone, it stood at the edge of Karnak 7's cliffside, a relic from before the Tharn warlords had turned the moon into a blood arena. Mason studied it from the tree line. It wasn't just a transmitter. It was a monument, meant to signal dominance across the stars. Now it would become something else. "How long to tap in?" he asked, eyes fixed on the tower's upper access port. Reyes wiped his hands clean on his shirt, then checked the drive. "Once I reach the console?" 2 minutes. "If I'm not shot." "You won't be," Mason said. "We're ending this." He turned to the others. Tran had wrapped Mendez's ribs again, tighter this time. Jenkins was down to 3 shots and 1 charge. Harlan walked with a limp but gripped his rifle tight. "We get Reyes up there," Mason said. "We hold the line until that feed hits the grid. Everyone clear?" "Loud and clear," Jenkins muttered. Reyes smirked. "No pressure." They advanced at dawn. Mist rolled off the cliffs in silver sheets. The jungle behind them gave way to open stone, wind biting and sharp. At the base of the tower, the path narrowed, a natural bottleneck, perfect for an ambush. Which meant one thing. Vorsk would be waiting. Mason gave a silent signal. Flanking wide, they approached low, rifles drawn. The team moved with practiced precision, boots never scraping. Every breath measured. Then it hit. A blast erupted from the tower's left flank, concussive fast. Jenkins tackled Mendez aside. Shrapnel burst into the rock wall. Mason dropped into cover behind a broken column. Figures emerged through the smoke. Tharn elites. 4 of them. And behind them, towering in ceremonial armor, was Vorskthal. His voice echoed through a vocal amplifier embedded in his throat. You came to expose us, human. But all you've done is prove our purpose. Mason rose, rifle aimed directly at the alien's chest. You hunt for pride, he said. We fight for each other. That's the difference. No, Vorsk hissed. The difference is you die now. He charged. The battle exploded in tight quarters. Vorsk slammed into Mason with bone-crushing force, knocking him into the stone wall. The impact cracked the surface, but Mason rolled aside, drew his sidearm, and fired twice into Vorsk's shoulder. Sparks flew. The rounds didn't penetrate. Armor plating. Jenkins took down one elite with a direct hit to the throat. Tran shot another through the eye before dropping behind cover. Mendez, half-conscious, held her ground with grit and fury, firing in short, calculated bursts. Reyes didn't look back. He sprinted to the tower, breathing hard, clutching the data drive like it was a flame he couldn't let die. He reached the console, jammed the chip in, and hacked the override. Inside the tower, lights blinked red then blue. Signal initializing. Mason ducked Vorsk's blade swipe and countered with a stun knife to the side. It cracked ceramic armor but didn't stop the alien. Vorsk growled and swung again, this time grazing Mason's ribs. Blood soaked his shirt. Mason gritted his teeth and pivoted. You want war? He shouted. This is how we end it. He tackled Vorsk backward, slamming him into the railing. The cliff edge was 10 feet away. Mason grabbed Vorsk's wrist, twisted the blade free, and stabbed upward into the joint of the alien's neck armor. Vorsk roared and flailed. Mason slammed a boot into his chest, forcing him back toward the cliff. The alien stumbled. You're not the apex, Mason said. Then he shoved him over the edge. Vorsk fell, vanishing into the mist. Reyes shouted from above. Signals live! Screens across the galaxy flickered. From luxury stations to border worlds, from council chambers to pirate strongholds, every screen blinked into the same footage. Human soldiers, shackled and bleeding, forced into combat. Tharn arenas. Hunted victims. Screams. Then Mason's voice. This is Karnak 7. My name is Captain Mason Wolf, Earth's Special Forces. These broadcasts were never meant to be seen. But now they are. The Tharn Dominion has broken every law of the Concord. They've kidnapped, tortured, and murdered dozens of species, ours among them. They call it tradition. We call it war crimes. He paused, camera static crackling slightly. If you're watching this, you know now. Do something. Or we will. Silence in the tower. Reyes let the final packet upload and stepped back. It's done, he said. Jenkins limped toward him. Nice work, Techie. They regrouped slowly. Harlan dropped to a knee. Mendez coughed but smiled. Tran leaned on her rifle, breathing hard. Mason stood at the cliff's edge. Smoke below. Vorsk was gone. But the message was out. 3 days later, in orbit above Karnak 7, the Council convened emergency session. Delegates watched the footage in grim silence. Words failed. But outrage didn't. The hunt games were banned. The Tharn faced sanctions, inspections, and exile from Concord governance. Earth was no longer under probationary military status. Instead, it was assigned a new designation: Apex-class combat species. On Earth, Mason sat alone on a cabin porch in the Rockies, overlooking a quiet stretch of forest. He wore civilian clothes. His sides still ached from the fight. But the war was over, for now. A newsfeed blinked on nearby. Reports confirm widespread unrest across Tharn territories as their leadership crumbles under the Council's ruling. Sources say the footage from Karnak 7 continues to circulate across over 300 broadcast systems. Mason turned it off. He looked at the horizon. A breeze passed. Somewhere behind him, a branch snapped. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just smiled.